I just want to invest in people that really want to be the best that they can be. Hello world, this is Todd Scrima with another We Be Your Best podcast series. So this is only my second one I've ever done. I'm doing 2 a month. One is for anybody. Anybody could learn this subject that we're going to talk about. Today it's about personal goal setting. And then I'm doing 1 a month for business people. So I've been in business now. I've owned my own companies for 25 years. I started a mortgage, my main business is a mortgage company called Summit Funding. I started it 25 years ago. It's now one of the largest mortgage companies in America, top 30 out of about 1,100 companies. And I also 20 years ago started a business coaching company called The Core, where we coach 500 people across the nation. And that's a high dollar coaching. People pay $3,000 a month to be coached. We guarantee their results will double. So it's a very, very intense program that Rick Ruby and I created, my partner, 20 years ago. And I'm doing this, so really a few reasons. One is I think information, the content that people get, like I love podcasts. I love them. I work out 2 podcasts 4 or 5 days a week. And so I listen to a lot of podcasts and I'm thinking about it and I'm like, number one, I want them to be more tactical. Like, let's pick a subject and let's actually get something done. Okay. And that's the idea for me, at least. Like sometimes I listen to a podcast and it's just motivational. I think you can have motivational, uplifting things, but also actually get something done on it. And that's the goal. These will always be an hour or less. Sometimes I'll have guests, sometimes I don't. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Jackson Thomas. Jackson, welcome. Thank you for being on, but I appreciate you doing this. He's like, Todd, what the heck are we doing? So Jackson runs a branch for Summit. He also is a professional coach within Summit Funding. He is a loan officer, so he does mortgage loans for a living, and he runs a branch. So he's got like 4 or 5 jobs, not counting his home life. And here's what I love about Jackson. First of all, he was in the mortgage industry a while ago, but only a loan officer starting 4 years ago. This year, he'll on his personal team for him, he will close $110 million in mortgage loans. That's the top 0.25% of all loan officers in the country. He's young, he's super intense. You're gonna love him. He's super intense. He's just, his growth curve looks like this. So this is something that I think a lot of probably younger people relate to. Like they'll listen to Jackson, and what I hope you do is you say, I want to be that guy. Like I want to be like him in business. He makes a ton of money. He's a very good saver, and he's a good man. Like he's a good family man, has great kids, wonderful wife. He's who you want to be. You know, sometimes growing up for me, I grew up, I just turned 50. So I grew up in the 70s but mainly 80s. And my favorite movie was Wall Street. So if you guys remember the original Gordon Gekko Wall Street, with Kirk Douglas, I think it was Kirk Douglas. Michael Douglas. And I grew up and I thought, well, I know how to be a good businessman. You just be ruthless to people and you just cut their throats out and all this stuff. And that's not who I am, and it's not who I ever needed to be. So you can be a really good person, treat people right, do the right thing, and great things will happen. And that's what Jackson represents. So Jackson, thanks for being on. Tell us a little bit about your personal life, just to warm us up.
Well, first, Todd, I'm honored. Thanks so much for inviting me on. Excited to be a small part in kind of what you're trying to build with the podcast, and excited for you, and just inspired by your desire just to really help people. You know, when I was talking to Todd about this, and the reason he said he wanted to start it was he's like, I just enjoy helping people. And I would say, I think that's a really honest statement, Todd. I mean, in terms of you're one of the more influential people that's, you know, been in my life. Todd is obviously the CEO of the company that I work for. He's also a part owner in the coaching company that I've been a part of. But I've known Todd for a while now, mainly, you know, from a distance when before I joined his company, and since then I've gotten to know him a lot better. And so just it's 50 years old, and let's see, you're 13 years older than me, and so just to be able to kind of have someone to look towards and see the future could hold. You've been a great visionary, I think, in my life in terms of just, and I think that's one of your greatest skills is being able to kind of see things that other people don't. And I think that's what a vision's about. I think that's a little bit about this podcast is about specifically today, goal setting and having a vision, like really being able to, imagination creates this, like way to kind of picture something. And then that then can then lead to, setting goals. I think that's like where all goal setting starts is just getting a vision for what you want your life to look like. So, I'm excited to participate in this. And, for the listeners, I think they really need to dig in and just listen to every word you say. And the big word we talk about in the course is surrender. Like listen, like this is pure gold. Like Todd's hourly rate, the amount of money, like, so you're getting this for free content from someone that's super successful, super wealthy, and has really a heart of a teacher and a heart of a giver. Like he wants to give. And I think that's the best people to learn from is people that are not like Gordon Gekko, and I don't think that's who you are, Todd, but it was a good movie.
Yeah.
Actually, the reboot was actually pretty good too. Shia
Yes.
LaBeouf, is one of his halfway decent roles. But I do think there's a lot to be learned in this, and so just being able to kind of, I hope the audience when they're listening to this is really like, hey, there's a lot of podcasts out there, but the information you put in your brain and choosing who you want to listen to is so valuable. Our parents always said, right, think about who you the friends you surround yourself with really impact you, right? So like who you choose to listen to, who you choose to influence you is very important, especially in today's environment where there's so much content. Like there's tons of content out there, but not all content is equal, right? And so I
Yeah.
would say highly valuable piece of material coming from Todd, and the fact you're going to be hearing from someone that's incredibly successful, very wealthy, very knowledgeable, great visionary, and really wants to teach rather than just tell you what to think. So that's a little bit of just my intro. I think, and you said, hey, just get a little bit about me. My name is Jackson. I'm located in Dallas, Texas. That's where I was born and raised. I have been married to my beautiful wife, Haley, for 14 years now. April will be 15. We've got two little girls, Ella and Gia, 8 and 3 years old. I've got two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother. They are both in the mortgage business with me, and we run the branch together. So pretty unique situation there where we're able to get along and work together. They also live in Dallas. So, and my parents live in Dallas. So we're pretty close in that regard. So I feel very fortunate and blessed in that regard. And then the mortgage industry, I love what I do for a living in terms of just being able to help people achieve the American dream, being able to become a homeowner. That's not something that's available in a lot of countries. There's a lot of countries that don't have a method for someone becoming a homeowner. A lot of countries, you have to be super elite, super wealthy to even own homes. Most people rent. And so to be in the country and to be able to participate in helping people, really achieve the American dream is something I wake up really excited to do every day. So I really feel fortunate.
Jackson, great intro. Two things I wanted you to know about Jackson. He's super smart. Like he's a doer. Like he takes action, which I love that about you. And I think the other thing is, before we were warming up on this call, and I said, hey, have fun, because he's like me. He's like super intense. And I love that about him. We're like two peas in a pod. But Jackson, you remind me of a story I want to start with, and then we're going to jump into personal goal setting and a process that was taught to me 23 years ago. So I have a friend of mine, and I never knew this about her. We're talking, and she says, I said, well, she owns a business, but it's a small business that she just started, and it's doing okay. And I said, gosh, what are you doing all this for? I was just making conversation. She says, she looks at me like, like thinking, like, am I going to tell him this? And she says, I build homes for handicapped children and their parents in Vietnam. And I said, what? She says, tells me this story. She says, she's from Vietnam. She says, I went back there to visit. I stopped by a house for a glass of water. There was a disabled child that was on a bed, and he couldn't be on the floor because it's a dirt floor, because they were living in a hut, like a lean-to hut. Um, and she showed me pictures, and then she said it's about $5,000 to build a new home with real floors. And so I started a nonprofit, and I now build 3-4 homes a year with my money. I don't get any donations, and I find um, parents who have disabled children, and I build them a house. And
Wow.
that's what I said. I was like, wow. I said, first of all, I'm going to help you build those houses. So here's some money to build 4. I said, secondly, you moved me, because no one told her to do it. She was literally visiting her home country. She stopped by for a glass of water. She became inspired, and she just did it. And so when you talk about doing, say, a podcast like this, why not? I've had people, professional coaches for 23 years pour into me. And I'm the person I am today, and grew my skill sets because of those. And I think that's the gift of giving, right? Whatever you're good at, let's share it with other people. And so that's really the basic for all this. I'm not making money from doing podcasts. It takes my time, but it makes me feel good. And at the heart of who I am is to help other people. So let's go over this goal setting. So let me just go over, for those of you that are driving, or you're not watching this on YouTube or something visual, you can go to beyourbestseries.com later and get the visuals that we're going over. It's beyourbestseries.com, because some of you guys are just watching this on Apple Podcast or something, or you're driving. So, but I will be showing visual aids on screen throughout this, so that we can be specific. So here is there's 3 parts to this goal setting. Let me just go over it quickly. The first part says, where are you now? And it breaks down our lives into 7 categories. 1 is work, 1 is money, love life, family, spirituality, friends, and self. And it says, hey, what are 2 things in each area that is a struggle in that area? So what are you struggling with at work? What are you struggling with in your money? On the right-hand side, it says rate each area from 1 to 10. How are you feeling about that area of your life? In work life, do you feel like a 2 or a 3, like you hate your job and you're ready to quit? Or do we feel pretty fulfilled, like we're a 7, 8, 9? And this first part is getting ideas, thoughts, and feelings from our head and our heart onto a piece of paper, and we're writing it down, which is called kinesthetic learning. And then on the bottom, it says, what's your biggest struggle of all the areas? The second page says, okay, on work, we rated a 7, say. So we're going to start in the middle, and we're going to count out 7 dashes, and we're going to put a little hash mark. And then we're going to do that for money. So maybe our money, we feel like a 5. So I'm going to start from the center, count out 5 dashes, put a little hash mark. And what we're trying to do is formulate what does our life look like if it was a picture. So I know the first time I ever did this, my work and my money were high, and every other area in my life was low. And that was okay. I didn't feel good at the time, but it was okay, because I realized that my job is to kind of develop this nice round circle. Right? That was my goal. Over the course of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I could make my circle bigger. I control my life. I control my choices. I can make it bigger. And that's the idea of that. And then the last page that we will go over is where will we be? So we're setting goals for 2021. Hey, what's 2 work goals that I want to accomplish? Right? What's 2 money goals that I want to accomplish? What's 2 love life goals? So sometimes in goal setting, if you do this, if you set 2 goals for 7 areas of your life, you have 14 goals. And I want you to write them down, and I want you to type them out or hand write them, and keep them somewhere where you can look at them. Keep them on your bathroom mirror, keep them at your desk. I like to laminate them so that they don't get ruffled and lost. So that's the exercise we're going to go through. And Jackson and I are just going to discuss our way through it as we do this, because he started doing this. Jackson, when did you start setting goals?
So I looked back, I basically just been kind of thinking about preparing for this podcast. I went back and looked. And so I started doing goals in 2006, right around this time of year with New Year's resolutions and things like that. So just, so I, let's see, I was talking with Holden, who's my older brother, and he was a part of this group called BNI. So if you've ever heard of that, Business Network International. So he was running a business at the time, in the mortgage business he started, and it was a networking group, and there was a person in that group called, with a company called SMI, Success Motivation International, and they had this course they taught called The Dynamics of Personal Goal Setting. And so Holden was like, dude, you should sign up for this thing. It's really cool. It's a 10-week course. It's 10 lessons, teaches you how to set goals. And so I signed up for kind of the new year, and that was a game changer for sure. Because I think like New Year's resolutions is just, it's like such an entry point into this concept, and a lot of people just don't do it well, and that's why most people fail on New Year's resolutions. But it's mainly because it's like, hey, like, nobody actually ever taught you how to ride the bike. So the first time you ride it, you fall off, and then you think, oh, like I should just not do this. But if you have someone that actually teaches you how to do it, and you get training wheels, and then you get build confidence, you know what you're doing, the technical aspect of setting goals. So that's when I started doing it. So it was interesting just to look back, because I found this dynamics of personal goal setting thing in my garage when we were doing a little bit of renovations of the house, because it's COVID environment, Corona, so we're all stuck in our houses, and I wanted to get my garage cleaned out a bit. So I found this thing, and so it was cool. I was able to like go back and look at goals I set. I don't know. It has them like from 2006 to like 2012, and then I think I moved it into a different binder at that point. But that was when I learned how to do it, and did the Wheel of Life for the very first time. I actually went back and saw the first time I did the Wheel of Life was on February 21st, 2006. So that's the first time I did this exercise.
So guys, one of the things I want to share with anybody is there's no new information. Like, I don't know where this goal setting came from. My mentor, Rick Ruby, taught it to me. He got it from somewhere. I'm sure they got it from somewhere. So nothing we're talking about is new, but what's new is that we actually do it, right? So many people have good ideas, but they have zero follow through. A lot of people will ask someone like myself or Jackson or other people like, hey, how did you get to where you are? One of my best answers is just be a doer. Like, if you think of something, do it. If you think of calling that client, do it. If you think of losing weight, let's start a meal plan tomorrow. Like, whatever it is, let's do it. And so I think everyone talks about this, and they're like, well, I think a lot of people, Jackson, they just don't have a process. Like, goal setting sounds great, and the process we teach is pretty simple, but we got to do it. So as we go through this, what I would tell you to do is, print it out, or if just write on a piece of paper if you don't have it in front of you, and write this down. So let's delve into this with work. The first thing we're doing is brainstorming. We say, hey, what's a couple struggles at work? I'll do one, and I'll ask Jackson to say one. One of the things in my mortgage business that I experienced this year is rates went down, and there's massive volume. Everyone's buying a house, everyone's refinancing, and we didn't have enough staff. So what did I do? So my struggle was being short staffed for a lot of the year. We think we've recently fixed it, but it was like really bad. Like, I had just one department work 3,300 hours of overtime in 1 month. One department. So I like worked my people to death. It was embarrassing. It didn't feel good. I felt like we could have prepared better. It just was all those feelings, right? So that's one for me. Jackson, what's something about work as you started setting goals this year? What's a struggle?
I mean, I would say, I think to Todd's point is we are in a unique situation that probably is different than a lot of listeners, unless they're in the mortgage industry, where a lot of people at work, maybe their struggle was getting laid off, reduced hours, reduced salary, job instability. In the mortgage industry, we're like on the opposite end of that spectrum. In residential mortgages, like we have too much business, so everyone's working overtime. So I would say the struggle for me is too many hours. Like
Yeah.
I working too many hours. I have a wife, I have two kids, an 8-year-old and 3-year-old. So the challenge for me is I'm trying to task manage, prioritize manage, like how do you time manage and priority manage, and so that I can fulfill the promises I've made to my customers and referral partners, at the same time making sure I'm not being neglectful or uninvolved, um, for my family. So like for me, the big struggle has really been keeping the hours at a manageable level. And so that's the number one struggle. And I've been trying to work set some goals around that. So like, you know, that's
Yeah.
been the main challenge for me.
I want to say a couple things to be empathetic to some people that have been out of work, or they've lost their business, or they're in threat of their business, or they're totally got to change careers. Let me say two things, and let me tell a story. I have a friend of mine, very wealthy, um, and he had a friend that uh, committed suicide, and he was an older gentleman, and he left a note to his family that he killed himself because he was so embarrassed because he had run up their credit cards. And so my friend hears about it, gets the note. Um, and so to put this in perspective, the gentleman who I'm talking about, his family member did run up $16,000 in credit cards is all it was. This person I'm talking about is a multi millionaire. And he felt so bad. He's like, if he would have just asked me for help, that's no big deal. I totally could have, I would have paid it off. It's no big deal. Right. So my purpose in telling you that story is not to depress you. I want people to ask for help. I sent a family member a couple $1,000 last night because I knew he needed it. And he's like, calls me about crying, like, ask for help. Ask for help. I can't, when you're in a bad spot, whether it's emotionally or financially, ask for help. People will help you. Okay. The other thing is, and I've been pretty outspoken about this fear-based mentality that's come over America with this COVID stuff. I'm telling you guys right now, it is wrong. There is nothing good about it. Let me give you an example. I have a new employee here. We're in the elevator this morning, and she says, "Hey, Mr. Scrima, I haven't had a chance to meet you today." I said, "Oh, what's your name?" "I'm Cindy. What department are you working in?" She says this. So we chat a little bit after we get off the elevator, and she says, "I just want to thank you." And I said, "Why?" She says, "I was in this other workplace for 10 years. I didn't make much money. I make another $1,500 a month here. I'm able to pay all my bills, save $300-400 a month, and I love it." So realize when one door closes, another door opens. And I just want you to hear me on this. There's some of you, some people during these times may be thinking, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do?" Let's start working on it, right? Start making phone calls, call some friends, call some employers, ask for some help, ask for some advice, but ask it of people that are successful at what they do, right? So I just want to get those things off my chest because it is a hard time. Jackson's right. There are certain industries like Amazon and some that have blossomed, and then there's others that have been totally devastated throughout this. So on a scale of 1 to 10, work. I don't give myself a lot of 8s, but I rated an 8. Jackson, what did you rate your work life?
Uh, so I would say when you're doing the wheel, a lot of it is kind of I'm balanced between, celebrating wins and constructive discontentment, right? So like if you're the type, like, growth mindset, I think is something Todd talks a lot about, versus fixed mindset. So there are people that are like, hey, like I graduated from college, I already know everything, I never have to read another book or never have to learn anything ever again. Hopefully you're probably not that person if you listen to this podcast. So
Right.
more of a growth mindset type person. So I would say, like, I want to celebrate and sit in and enjoy the blessing that I have. Like in a lot of ways, I'd probably put work at like an 8 or 9. Like in a lot of ways, it was a record year, which is I'm super grateful for. So I want to celebrate that gratitude. But then there's that constructive discontentment, which is like, how can I do the same with less hours, right? So that's one of the things my mentor challenged me is like, hey, get your hours down to 40 hours a week. Like, stop working overtime, right? And so like that would be the thing that I would put as, hey, how can I improve that constructive discontentment to say, how can I make sure I'm still growing? And like the illustration I like is like in anything with goal setting and just in life, if you're a pond, you will grow algae and nothing can really live there. But if you're a stream or a brook, like when things are moving, it stays cleaner, and so there's just something about like, you've got to keep moving forward. You have to keep growing. If you sit and stagnate, then you don't grow. And then it can lead to kind of almost like a disease in a lot of ways. Like you kind of it can fester some bad things in your thought, especially in this environment where sometimes if you've struggled or had a hard year, which probably a lot of people have. So like to Todd's point, which is like, you just got to keep moving forward. You've got to like, it's not just like, as Carl Weathers, who's my brother from another mother, his name is Action Jackson. And so that was, I watched that movie in the 80s, and then I ran for student body president with my tagline of, if you want to get some action, vote for Jackson. I did not win. But I think it's very applicable to goal setting, and that if you want something, you have to take action. Like, it is not just enough to smile and nod to the things that Todd is saying. Like, if you're just like, oh, like that was a good point, Todd, good job.
Right.
You have to focus and pursue. Like I like the word focus. It's an acronym. It's like follow one course until successful. So just listen to the podcast and just do the worksheet, and then just stop, like keep doing it every day until it's done. And so I think that's a big part of what I would say to answer your question. I would put it like a 9 is where I feel like I would rate myself there. And so that gives a little bit of context for why I'm giving
Yeah,
that.
I love that. You reminded me of something that I've struggled with. I've had anxiety my whole life, and I didn't even know it. And until about 5 years ago, I went through a divorce, and I said, I'm going to ask for help like I tell other people to do. And I went to a therapist, and I had a couple sessions with her, and she looks at me and says, Todd, I know what your problem is. You have high anxiety. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't feel that way. I'm super happy. She says, well, do you think this way? Do you do this? Do you do that? And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. She's, oh, you have anxiety. I never knew it. I just thought I had a lot of energy. I called it energy. No, stupid. It's anxiety. Okay. So here's what helped me. She says, Todd, I know you've played a lot of sports and golf and stuff like that. I want you to treat everything like a game. And I said, explain that. She says, well, she asked me some examples. Like I would be one of these people where when I was a loan officer, if I did 20 loans, then if I didn't do 20 loans the next month, I would beat the hell out of myself. I mean, beat the heck out of myself. Okay. And she says, no, she says, in that example, play the game. So you closed 20 and you celebrated and you did good things, but then the next month you close 15, play the game to get back to 20. Just treat it like a game, like a golf game, a baseball game. Treat it like that. Treat everything like that. And I'm telling you, for me, my anxiety has gone so down, and my enjoyment and gratitude and happiness level has skyrocketed. I've actually had people tell me, Jackson, and Jackson's known me through this, people will tell me, you're a different person. Now, I'm 50, right? So I'm learning this stuff at 45 years old. And I'm super growth minded. I read lots of books. I've had coaches, but there's blind spots. And one of the blind spots, relating it back to what we're talking about, is we're going through an awareness exercise. Like, how do we really rate work? How do we really rate our love life? So let's skip over money just for the sake of time. I think people get money. People may say, I didn't save enough, or I don't have enough, or I don't have enough liquid reserves. Whatever you put around money is fine. Don't understand it. I had a friend of mine tell me the other day, she has $2 million in cash. She says, Todd, I'm so embarrassed. I don't even understand what to do with it. I have no idea. I said, great, read this book. Let's have some meetings. We'll figure it out. But, I told her, I said, listen, I have spent hundreds of hours studying money. So yes, I got some skills around it because I studied it. You just got to build your skill set, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point, is just like building your skill set, and like, just like you're listening to this podcast, I think they're in that process. So Todd is super process driven. So like, if it's work related, find someone that has a process. If you're in the mortgage industry, it's probably going to be kind of the stuff that Todd teaches through the core or through Summit Funding Coaching. If you're on money, like, pick a process. I would say for me, one of the processes that was very helpful is the core stuff. And then Dave Ramsey, like, I'm teaching that right now to my community and my team, to like get $1,000 of money in the bank, then pay off your debt, then build up an emergency fund, then put 15% into retirement, then invest in your kids' college fund, and then learn how to give and be a super generous person. And so, like, I think from a money standpoint, as I've sat down with people on money, is like having a plan, like getting on a budget. Like, these things aren't really taught in school a lot of times. So that's the one thing I would say on money is, right now my wife and I are going to take the legacy journey as a goal for us, and starting in January, like, figure out how, like, we've finished one class with Dave Ramsey. We're going to do another one just to, from a marriage standpoint, the more you can get on the same page with your spouse on spending money, the more intimacy, the less arguments. And so that's a big focus for me, is less arguments and fights about money, and for us to really get more aligned with our goals around money. So I would just say real briefly, that's been a big focus for me, a pain point in the past, and a kind of focus area that we're working on.
Yeah. Let's skip down to love life. So that's an easy one for me. My struggle is, mine just says get one.
Okay.
There's not even two struggles. There's just one. That's get one, because I don't have one. I would want one, but it just hasn't happened yet. So what I rated that area of my life is a 4. It's not lower than that for me. Like, I'm oddly a patient person in some areas, and I just figure, hey, I'll keep working on it, and I'll get there when I get there. I'm sure it'll happen. So what's a struggle? Jackson, before this call, he's like, hey, how transparent can I be? I said, dude, let it rip, right? So what's a love life area? What's an area that you wrote down? Hey, I struggle in this area.
I would say managing conflict in a very calm and constructive way. So me and my wife are not criers. We are yellers. So when like, we're both very intense people, that about me. And so, like, if we have a conflict, historically we've raised our voices. Like that's just kind of how we communicate. And so, having young kids, I've become more aware of it over the last several years. And so to be like, we've really put a lot of effort into, I think, it's not disassociation, but like there's a way to create intimacy without having to agree with someone. There's something like Holden told me about that. Like, there's some book, can't remember exactly the psychological term, but the idea is like, I can really like you, Todd, and we can be close, good friends, even if we don't agree on everything.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
I can like you and not like your opinion on that particular topic. But I find in today's environment, a lot of times people, if you don't agree with my opinion, we're not friends anymore. Or they, people get their feelings hurt real quick. And so I think, especially in the highly charged political environment. So I think what I've been really trying to focus on is, like, and one of the big things I took away from goal setting as a habit is tracking. So like writing, like, I have goals I have every day and I track it. So like, my goal is to not raise my voice. Like, even if I get frustrated, even if I am upset about something, I have to learn how to compose myself. And my 8-year-old has really taught me this, because my 8-year-old, it's really funny. She takes after her parents and she gets angry. She will throw her bike down and say stupid bike, or she'll throw her backpack down. Like, why is my water bottle not going in my backpack? This backpack is stupid, right? Like, it's like she's learned from us in terms of, she does not really respond with tears or repressing or running away. She responds with anger. And that's like a powerful defense mechanism in a lot of ways, if you can channel it well. So I'm trying to teach her that, and I have to demonstrate that. Like, I can say, hey, even though I'm frustrated, I have to stay composed and express that frustration in a mature way. And I am really working on that. Like, that's I
That's a
would say
good one.
I probably rate myself a 7 on that. And it bleeds, it's a personal goal, but it's also really bleeds into my marriage in terms of there's a lot of decisions and conversations you make with your spouse on
Yeah.
so many topics, and it just leads to potential arguments. And so I don't want to shy away and disengage with my wife. I want to engage, but I want to do it in a way that is constructive.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I want to make sure we get all through this
Sure.
material. I think that the point here is to write some real struggles down in these different areas and rank them on 1 to 10. 10 being the best, 1 being the lowest. How are we feeling in this area? I know one of the things that like we get down to self, and this is about 5 years ago. I was about 30 pounds overweight, and I was like, that sucks. Like, you're kind of fat. I'm 6'3". Right now I'm 185. So what was I? Uh, 230 or something. And that's just too big. So um, so but that came from this exercise, because I noticed for 3 years it was on my goals to weigh 185. And for 3 years, I kept seeing it on there, not accomplishing it. Where most of these goals, because Jackson knows, when you do this, you'll get 75, 85% of these goals done every single year. It's just how it works. So that one I finally broke through, and I haven't struggled with it since. So this stuff works, is what I'm saying. Let's talk about, so the second page. Let me just show this visual just real quick one more time. So we've got these struggles, and then we're gonna make ourselves this cute little picture here that shows the the picture of our life, or how round our life is, so to speak. But then the last page is we're gonna put some thought into goals. Two goals for each area. Now, how this works is, and how I do it is, I've got a lot of work goals. My business plan is filled with work goals. But what are the 2 most important? With money, what's the 2 most important ones? So I may start out writing 4 or 5 things that come to my head, brainstorming it, and then I'll pick the top 2. Okay, so I can focus on them. Love life, same thing. So let's just jump around a little bit, and I want Jackson and I to share a couple things that are on our goals for next year. Now, I'll tell you, let me take love life for me. So I told you I don't really have one. So I don't know how to write a goal around that. So I said, hey, what can I do? And what I wrote on my goals is go on 4 high quality dates. That makes sense to me. Okay, I can accomplish that one. I can't put something down there like fall in love. I don't have control over that. Okay, so I make it achievable and specific, and I'll put dates on there. So I might put, hey, 4 quality dates by September 30th, 2021. Always, I'm making it very specific. There's 4 dates by September. That's pretty specific. I'll go over one more, and then I'll ask Jackson to go. I had this, my ex and I have a pretty decent relationship. Like, we're really good parents. She calls me, this is about 5 months ago. And I'm telling you, we had it out. She had it out with me. I didn't have it out with her. And she just rides me the right act. And what it revolved around was, she says, hey, you're just not as connected as you could be with the kids. You're a great dad, but you just need to be more connected. And I think a lot of men can identify with this comment. So I started something as an experiment. I actually did 2 things. I started every Monday night, we have family meeting night. And we go over certain things. Like I say, hey, what's all the activities we got planned? Is it in our calendar? Make sure we're all on the same page with football and basketball and all that stuff. So we do the activities. Then we get into hey, what's our biggest fear? What's our biggest struggle? We talk about, they have to ask me a question, so I make them ask me a question. And then we end with gratitude. So I started this family meeting, and it kind of starts us off on Mondays on the right foot. But what led out of that is I decided I'm going to do 2 dates a month with each child. I have 3 kids. I'm telling you what, that's been one of the best, stupidest decisions I've ever done in my life. So I wrote down on this year's goal, date night, every two a month with every child. And I for sure will do that one. It's been a game changer for me as a father. So Jackson, tell me about a couple of years that we can touch on.
Are you talking about parenting? Did I
No,
say?
no, any goals that you want to share for next year that are important to you. And you may pick spirituality or work or money, and anything that you think like, hey, this is what I'm, this is what I am goal setting around for next year.
Let's see here. Okay. So if we're looking at the wheel of life, um, I would say, I mean, some things that kind of come to mind are on the two areas was, let's see here, I think four, I like on the love life, four romantic trips and having more romance, excitement, and fun and laughter in my marriage. I'd really like to get something going with my kids where we do like some kind of annual trip and like have a daddy date calendar or something like that. I would like to um, invest in friends more and do like some kind of monthly buddy lunch and like an annual guys trip. And then I would say, uh,
Let's stop for just for a second because you said several things, but um, I really liked it when you said four romantic trips with my wife. I wasn't as thrilled when you said have more, I don't know, romance and fun because it's not. I can't look back next year and know if we did that one.
okay. Yeah, I agreed.
Now,
So,
one more comment. Yeah,
yeah,
I take a guy's golf trip every year. Every August, I'm on a guy's golf trip. So when you say take a guy's golf trip, I would like you to literally say the date or the month,
yep.
right? Like you might say, have take my five best friends and go fishing or golfing or something in September.
Mhm.
That would be more specific.
Yeah, I think the method, like what do they call it, like smart goals, like being more specific, having some kind of measurement associated with it, um, making sure it's really realistic and attainable, and then it's results oriented. There's some kind of metric tied to it, and then time bound, like having some kind of date. So I agree with all that. I think those are good. I just didn't. I was kind of just running through a couple that were just top of mind, and so, um, you know, but. Um, but yeah, so I would say, yeah, I don't know, like, so did you want me to go into more detail on any particular goal, or did you have another question on that? Like, what would you think would be most beneficial to your listeners in terms of the exercise or other questions you think would be beneficial for them?
Yeah, so I would say a couple of things. And let me just I want to ask some general questions. So um, what has been your progression for the last 4 or 5 years you've been setting goals this way? What do you think is the biggest difference from the first time you did them to 5 years later now doing them?
Well, I mean, I would say I've been following this same method for since 2006. So
Yep.
there is a process to it. So Todd's very process oriented. So you have the wheel of life, you fill out the where are you now, you fill out where you want to be, you set two goals in each area, and then you track how you do, right? So like I think looking at the goals every single day, having some kind of coach or accountability partner always helps.
Mm.
And so I think the biggest the biggest difference, there's a great story, or I mean it's actually science, is um, Harvard Business Review did, or Harvard Business, I guess, did a study on a graduating class over like a 20-year period of time. So I think it was like a class that graduated in like the late or the early 80s or something like that. And the report came out in the mid 2000s. Is they tracked like the people that like had no goals, and they had people who had goals, and then people who had written goals. And so Todd, uh, take a guess at how much more money you think the people who at least had goals over the people who did not have goals made.
3 or 4 times.
Actually, wow, you don't know if you're at 3 times. So like on average, like they kind of took the entire graduating class and tracked it and kind of stayed in touch with them. Was 3 times if you at least had a goal. You don't even have to write it down. Guess how much the money made on average the people that had written specific goals?
5 or 6 times.
10 times.
10
over the
times.
people that had no goals, right? So no goals to written goals was 10, right? So I think I use that illustration to kind of maybe expound upon my experience with it, that I would say it's been very much like that. Like the life-changing habits of, like you said, do it now, like, or do it, like that was a principle I remember learning in 2006, like the do it now habit, like have a habit. If you need to get something done, you just do it right now. Like just get over the mental hurdle of procrastinating, just do the thing right now.
Yeah.
And like, and so like learning little things like this have a compound effect, you know, of you just constantly learn these things. And I think that's been a little bit more of my experience with this exercise, is just constantly doing it over a long period of time, is like constantly investing in your 401k. You put money in your 401k every single month, you will be a millionaire in 30 years if you just do it consistently. The people that do it, the people who don't, who every once in a while, they're never as rich, right? It's like with goal setting. If you're consistently investing in your goals every single month, you will be surprised where you could be in 10 to 20 years in terms of the returns.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to, Jackson gave you a real nugget there. I promise you, if you write this stuff down, 80% of it will happen. It's like I don't know, I don't even know what you call it, but it just happens. Now, not every single thing will happen, but about 80% of it will happen. It just happens. So let me ask you a question. What do you think is the emotional reason why people don't set goals?
Fear, 100%. I think it takes courage to set goals. Absolutely. And so I like
So are you calling people chicken littles? Is that what you're saying?
I think everyone operates with some degree of fear, right?
Yeah.
And so I like the acronym, fear is false expectations appearing real, right? And fear is in my opinion, is like the corrupted version of imagination, right? Like we all have imagination. You are using it to imagine bad things happening.
Yeah.
You're imagining failure, imagining, hey, if I set this goal, if I write it down, I won't get it done. And then I'm going to feel bad about myself, or I'll feel embarrassed, or, so it's like Homer Simpson always used to say, like, to Lisa's, like, set your expectations so low that, like, you always succeed. Like, like, so it's like, so I think some people think that way in terms of like, it's better just like not set a goal because then you don't fail. And so I would say, I do think it takes courage to look yourself in the face and say, I'm overweight, 230 pounds, I need to cut my weight, right? That takes courage. It's much easier to put your head in the sand and say, you know what, I'm fine.
Jackson, you know what's funny about that? I thought I was just pudgy. Yep. No, there came a day I said, no, you're not pudgy, you're fat.
But you had the courage to lean into that, right? And my encouragement is, if you're thinking about this, just take the 5 minutes after you get this podcast, print this stuff down and write it out. Like, it won't happen unless you write it down. If you have a New Year's resolution or anything you just thought about in this entire hour, it's just a dream. It's never going to happen unless you write it down. The difference between a dream and a goal is it has to be written down. It is not a goal unless it is in writing. That's how you know it's more likely to happen. And so I just think having that courage to do that. And so hopefully by listening to this podcast, you're inspired by the different stories you hear on this on a regular basis to really just take that next step, take the action, like the do it now principle. Just go write it down, fill out the wheel of life, do the best you can, and just do the best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. You just got to make a small step every day.
Yeah, I think that's very important. Let me ask you another question. How much do you think people should involve their spouse and their kids in goal setting?
Great question. I would say knowing this stuff is very motivating for me to teach it to my kids and spouse. But I will just tell you, like, my spouse is not really into this kind of stuff. My like, opposites attract, right? Like, she's very artistic. She has, her brain just works different than me. Like, I'm kind of certain way, she's different way. So I was very attracted to the opposite personality type. And so she is, being around me, she's become a little more open to it. And we've done some goal setting together. But I tend to find when I encounter work with people such as yourself that are more into this, I get more out of it. But I would say now being a husband and with kids, I have thought a lot about like Rick and Todd recently shared, like do the wheel of life with your kids over Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's been a recent challenge. I want to do that. I want to teach. So my daughter wants to get her ears pierced, and so I told her she has to save and pay for it out of her own pocket for $120. So she's now super motivated to do chores, and we call it commissions. And so she gets 50 cents for every chore she does, and she gets a commission. And so she's going to learn that. And like, that's part of what I would say this stuff has taught me is like, teach your kids how to goal set. But I'm just probably really starting to do that. I historically have not done that as much because my wife does not enjoy it as much as I do. I'm like really nerdy about this stuff. Like I love writing down.
Yeah, goals. I'm the same way. I geek out on this stuff.
I totally geek out. Yeah. And
but
not everybody's like that, but I would hope everyone would be that. If you want to be a high achiever, my opinion, it's psychologically and scientifically proven to visualize and write down goals is a very common skill among high achievers.
But you bring up a good point. So like you said, you are hardwired that way. Your spouse is not. I think a good way to blend that is make it super light and fun to a more artistic type person, and just say, hey, what's a couple of things, honey, you think we should do this year? What's some trips we should go on? What's your ideas I should do with work? What do you think I should do? Oh, you think I should work 5 less hours a week? Okay, that's a good, and just kind of massage them through it, and then, come to them and say, hey, I wrote out I know this is kind of specific for you, but I put that trip to Carmel, or to the beach, I put it on there for June. Do you think that works? And I think you can kind of mold those two personalities together that way. Same with my children. I don't have my kids fill out all areas. My kids range from 10 to 7 to 16. And, but I have them set 3 goals. And I say, hey, what's 3 goals? And what my son's, my soon to be 15-year-old says, Dad, I want to win the football championship or be the highest rated lineman.
Wow.
Said, that's a good one, right? Good one. You don't control the championship, but you control lineman, your position. So, they can be pretty creative that way. They kind of cracks me up. Just a sidebar story. I told you I started doing this date night. So my 14-year-old says, Dad, I want to learn the stock market.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, dude, that's like music to my ears. So yeah. We got that Robinhood app that allows you to buy stock, on an app, partial shares. It's more for kids and families. And so I said, hey, I'm going to put $2,000 in here and let's see how much we could grow it. And so we invested in Amazon and Tesla and Nike and some other companies he likes. So a month goes by and he's always asking me about it. So our next date night, we just talked about the stock. We went to a restaurant and talked about stocks all the time. I pull up his Robinhood account. His money went from $2,000 to over $3,000 in a month.
Nice. There you go. Awesome.
I'm like, Bud, you're going to be my financial advisor. This is great.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Awesome. You got to be proud of that.
Well, it's just it's to your point where my daughter is the only one that likes to do fishing and skiing and stuff with me. I took her out fishing for our date last Saturday. We end up catching 39 fish.
Wow.
In a day. 39 fish.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ridiculous. So anyway, I'm just going off telling some stories. I do want to touch on something before we wrap up because we're almost done. One of our core coaches, JJ, and I'm sure he got it from somebody, but he was given a talk about a year ago that stuck with me, and he said, comparison is the thief to joy.
Yep. Teddy Roosevelt, I think, said that.
Was it? Okay. So in today's, and listen, Jackson will admit this, he's a big comparison. He's always chasing the next person in front of him. I am very guilty of that. My whole life, I've been that way. It wasn't until this last 5 years or so I've really understood what that meant. But then I also look at, this, I don't know what you call it, so many people on Facebook and it looks like everyone's got these great lives, but they sometimes don't. And, you got to have the Gucci purse and all this stuff. As you're going through this goal setting, as you're doing this, and I want Jackson to comment on this, but my comment is this: be truly grateful and happy for what you're doing. And if you get into that big comparison game, it steals your thunder, it steals your joy. There's always someone gonna do more loans than Jackson, or appear to have better kids, or who knows what. It's always gonna be. And so be the best version of you. And I think that's a great focus. Play the game, be the best version of you. But I would like you to comment on that, because it's something that you and I work on.
Yeah, the thing I took away from kind of what you were saying there is, in the way I kind of framed in my head, is like kind of the difference between like happiness and joy, is that I think as men especially, but I think this is true of high achievers, and it's kind of true in a lot of ways, is I love that quote, comparison is the thief of joy. I've known that for a long time, is like there's always somebody that's going to do better than you. And a lot of times as high achievers, like as soon as we get in the end zone, we then move the stakes back 10 yards. And then it's like, so that's kind of part of when you were asking that question. I want to celebrate in this moment what's going well. And so I think happiness, if happiness is what you're after, it's always if I get this, then I'll be happy. But I think joy is like finding contentment with where you're at, your purpose. Like I enjoy what I do, the day-to-day pounding in the stone, chopping wood, carrying water, like the process itself, I enjoy it. And I find joy is more of a constant state of presence and mind. I can chase things that I want, and I will be happy when I achieve it, and I will be unhappy if I don't achieve it. It's just the emotion roller coaster of, hey, I'm a little bit overweight and I'm feeling a little unhappy about that. And oh, hey, I got my weight and I'm feeling happy. Or I hit the sales target, or I didn't. I got the date, I didn't. I had a good conversation with my daughter, or I didn't. Whatever it may be for you and your situation. But I really like Matthew McConaughey had a recent, I think, speech about this, when he talked about like if happiness is what you're after, you will be let down frequently, and you will probably be unhappy most of your life. But if you can learn about the concept of joy and really learning how to find satisfaction in just the process, and separate from results, then I think you have a better chance of kind of maintaining an overall place of happiness. Obviously, there'll be greater moments of happiness when you accomplish your goals. But that would be my thought process, and how I've tried to, even like that concept I talked about a little bit, is a constructive discontentment. Like you said, you ripped yourself apart, like you didn't push anyone. It's like I can be discontent if I don't have a good month, but like it needs to be a constructive discontentment. Don't let it like become a toxic thing that and I think gratitude is the real big thing on this, like writing down 3 things you're like that's really helped me balance. Todd and Rick taught me that. I'm doing like every day, write down 3 things you're grateful for, and just being grateful for hot water, running water, a comfortable bed. Like it's amazing how it balances you back out, and you start to see a lot more things that you can be happy about. If you just get super focused on your goals, sometimes it can become an unhealthy thing. You have to find some balance there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Great comments. I was talking to someone the other morning, they called me and they're like, woe is this and woe is that. And just really, I said, hey, are you driving there? So no, I said, shut your eyes. And I said, I really want you to focus on this. And I told her the story. I said, hey, there's a lady who woke up this morning on a dirt floor, and she looks over at her 2 babies, and they both have a disease and they're going to die young, and she's got no food. I said, now open your eyes. And I said, now what were you calling me about complaining?
Yeah.
And she's all, nothing, boss. I'll talk to you later. I mean, you have to go there.
I love it. It says someone else is happier with less than what you have. There is somebody out there who's really actually very happy. They have way less than you do.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Like if you're competitive, like learn to be like that, like beat them at happiness, because you don't need more to be happy. You just have to have a better, cleaner mind, like in terms of how you process the information in your life,
Yeah. So let's wrap up some of this stuff. First of all, Jackson, I love doing stuff like this with you, because you're the epitome of I tell Jackson someday he's taking over the company, and he thinks I'm joking. I'm really being serious. I'm like, I really think you will. Like, I really just, your growth mindedness and intensity around learning, I love it. And I wish more people would have that and have less fear around what can and can't happen. And you covered it earlier, like just have less fear. Okay. The worst thing that can happen is you go for it and we fail forward and learn something. And I just love that about, I think it's one of your best skills, and you're so bright to see what you've done in 4 years. I'm literally, I've been coaching people professionally for 20. I've owned Summit for 25. Never seen it. I've never seen it. Like, you're an aberration in a great way. And I think also that, you know, you learning to balance at a much younger age than I did around, I know it's not perfect, but to take that animal inside, that high intensity person, and know how to tame it to where you can truly enjoy what you're doing, but yet still achieve at a high level. That's very hard to do, and something that I'm just learning to do at a later age. Guys, I have a couple asks of this. The whole goal of this is to give uncommon information to common people. And what I mean by that is, in the core, the coaching company, you can't afford to get this information. It's not rocket science. None of this is rocket science. It's all been around. But I want you to give you some specific things, some specific takeaways. What I want you to do is two things. Number one, forward this to at least 3 people, 3 friends, and say, hey, gotta watch this. And I want you to tell them the number one thing you got from it, the number one takeaway. And the reason I say that is the best way to learn is to teach. It's the best way to sink in information. That's why Jackson's a professional coach. The second thing is, if you give a comment on here, we're going to take all of your comments from this podcast, and we're going to do a drawing for a North Face jacket. So Summit's got these really cool North Face jackets. The last thing is an ask. I want you to text someone, hopefully your spouse if you're married, and say, I will get my personal life goals done by this date. Pick it maybe a week from now or 3 days from now, not too far away, but finish with this, or I will pay you $100. Like put some accountability in there, so that person becomes an accountability partner, and you can share that and say, hey, here's my personal goals. I told you I'd get it to you on Tuesday. Here it is Monday. I'm giving you my goals. Text someone right now so you give yourself that accountability. Here's the idea, is pressing yourself a little bit. So many people are so soft in this life. I get mad sometimes. I remember years ago, someone didn't go for a promotion, and I went to her desk and I said, what are you doing? She said, what are you talking about? I said, you didn't apply for that promotion. That position opened up. She says, I just don't think I could do it. I said, yes, you can. Everyone around you knows you can. You can do it, right? She ended up applying. She ended up getting the job, okay? So I want you guys to go for it in life. Life is special. We're not here for a long time, and we got to make the most of it. Jackson, thank you very much for spending your time. You're an awesome man, and I think you helped a lot of people. Happy New Year. Let's have a great 2021. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
I just want to invest in people that really want to be the best that they can be.